Quite simply, and to put it bluntly, Kirk Campbell is the worst offensive coordinator in Michigan history and one of the worst we've ever seen in Big Ten college football. Other than that, he has a wonderful singing voice. Next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Hit. Caught.
They said you can't be Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, and in. Touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue. I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast, which we're doing simply because I've had too many great things going on in my life the last few weeks, and I just need balance. And I need to feel pain again. Makes you alive. Puts hair on your chest. As my father-in-law, God rest his soul, used to say. So let's talk Michigan football, shall we? Blink 3 times if you're not a hostage. Anyway, I'm out of things to say. I don't do moral victories. Moral victories are for losers, okay? So we covered the spread against Indiana because I have a penis. So I'm not doing that either. So that leaves us with what? Here's something new I haven't said yet. I've been thinking about it for a few weeks, and I'm 100% convinced of it after what I saw. That cavalcade of whimsy called Michigan's red zone play calling. Worst red zone play calling all year long. All year long, worst red zone play calling I've ever seen. Not just at Michigan, like anywhere. Anywhere that football is televised, it's the worst I've ever seen. The worst I have ever seen. Connor Stallions is apparently the offensive coordinator for Bryce Underwood now at Belleville. Let's bring him in. He's a legend already anyway. All right? I mean, this is just, I don't even know. What are you? What are you? What is the system? What are we trying to do? The whole thing is, it's teach tape of what it looks like when people who shouldn't be coaching your team are coaching it. And that people in this case is the offensive coordinator, Kirk Campbell. Maybe I should have realized when he sucked at Old Dominion, this probably wasn't going to go well. But hey, we've got to some of you, this will be new. To some of you, this will be breaking news and a spoiler alert, okay? But sometimes we Michigan fans and Michigan folks can. I know this is going to shock many of you. We can kind of be a little arrogant sometimes, a little myopic, you know. I know that that's not a characteristic any of you have ever picked up on. But sometimes we kind of think just taking mid and mediocrity and poop and slapping the block M on it will make it work. It gets better. Sometimes it's just mid. Sometimes it's just poop, whether it's got a block M on it or not. And folks, that is Kurt Campbell at offensive coordinator. Sometimes it's mid. Most times it's poop, whether he's wearing a block M or not. There's just nothing happening there. I don't even know what they're doing. I don't know what the scheme is. I was talking to a Michigan media reporter who's a friend of mine about the prospect of bringing in Miller Moss. Michigan's talking to him already. He's in the transfer portal out of USC. And we started talking about what would Moss do in our system. I was talking to a buddy of mine who's in the Michigan media, and we were discussing the prospect of bringing in Miller Moss, the USC quarterback, who's had a really good year. I mean, he's top 20 in the country in passer rating. He's the number 5 rated passer in the Big Ten, so he's had a good year. Just haven't won a lot of games. And I don't blame Lincoln Riley for making the switch. The team's not going anywhere. Let's see if this young hotshot recruit is the future, if he's ready for next year. So Miller Moss is in the transfer portal. We're talking to him, and we started having a conversation about what he could be in our system. And I stopped and I said, what exactly is our system? He was like, word. So, I mean, our system is suck. The scheme is suck. The on-field product is suck. And therefore, the coaching is suck. And Kurt Campbell, I have no idea why he remains employed at the University of Michigan. I couldn't come up with a conceivable reason, except one. There's a lot of talk about Sharon Moore taking over the play calling duties. Sharon, if you're listening to me, and you probably aren't, but if you are, hell no, don't do that. Whatever the odds, Sharon Moore gets fired after 1 year, and I think they're pretty remote. Quadruple them if he takes over the play calling duties, because you can't. What ails this gets fixed in December and January, not with schemes and play calls. And if you're Sharon Moore and you take this over, and it looks a lot like what it looks like now, but you are calling the plays, that gets on you, bro. That gets on you. So you want to make sure that you've got a scapegoat. I'm sorry, someone to hold responsible for that. Someone to hold responsible for this travesty called Michigan's 2024 football season. So now that I say that, maybe I talked myself into keeping Kurt Campbell around. If only because at this point, I mean, his name is so much mud as it is, you might as well just go ahead and keep soiling it over and over and over again so that at the end of the year, it'll look like it's a brand new day and people will celebrate that they have been freed from his reign of offensive coordinating terror. Let's find out what our good friend Mark Rogers over at the Bucknut side of things, what he thinks here in a moment. All right, let's get the viewpoint from the other side of the scarlet and gray septic tank with our good friend Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. Check out that channel right here on YouTube as well. So, Mark, good to see you, brother. How are you? And I'm running out of things to say about this football season, so I've just started firing people. There's really not much else to do. I have no idea why Kurt Campbell is still employed as Michigan's offensive coordinator, but I think lots of heads are going to roll here in December. But what say you?
Good to see you too, as well, Steve. I got to say that it is always good to see you, win or lose, even suffering through a championship season in 2023, as I had to do. But the appearances this year, a little bit more amusing on my side of the cage. So as soon as I saw this email come through from you, as I do each week when you prep me for the show, talking about Kirk Campbell, I thought, okay, Michigan offense. The quarterbacks suck. He was over-evaluated, underqualified for this job coming in as an OC at Old Dominion. So I looked up just to verify his stats there, 84th in the country in total offense in 2021. They canceled the season in 2020. So he really just earned a paycheck, I guess, or just received one. And then I'm thinking, okay, let's look at this Indiana game. I watched it on Saturday. I reviewed the final couple minutes because I knew that there was just some botched time clock management. But of course, that's falls on Sharon Moore. So when it comes to the offense, okay, I'm looking at the numbers. And again, I watched the game, but went back to the numbers about an hour ago. And I see that Donovan Edwards had 15 carries. Khalil Mullings had 10 carries. That's 25 carries among two talented running backs. The best they could do was an 8-yard run. And if I'm not mistaken, Michigan's probably the best rushing offense that Indiana's faced this year. Michigan or Washington have the best backs that they have faced this year. And when we think about scheme, we think about pass scheme, passing offense, working guys open. But there's also, as Michigan has demonstrated over the last 3 seasons, a science and a art as well to the rush offense and creating running lanes and working the offensive line. And if you can only create an 8-yard running play against an Indiana defense that is much improved, it's a good defense, but that's abysmal. This whole use of Alex Orji in the red zone irritates me as well. That's just crazy what he's done. Of course, the trick play against Oregon when it was still a game, they were within 11 points. That was the epitome of it right there. But right out of the gate, they come out with a 14-play, 66-yard drive, and then Davis Warren's thrown back for a sack back to the 21, and so that was ill-fated. That first and goal from the 7 after the pick that set them up, that was painful to watch again. I took it in again this afternoon. So, yeah, even the touchdown drive was a 7-play, 34-yard drive with a 15-yard personal foul. So it was a 19-yard drive for a touchdown. That was it.
And they had to get to 4th down, remember, to score that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why he's still employed here. I have no idea. My suspicion is there's a lot of clamoring for Sharon Moore making himself the OC. If I am Sharon Moore's agent, I'm never letting him do that in a million years. Okay? Because he needs all the plausible deniability, brother, he can get. And you make him the OC and he goes out there and struggles to put up 21 on Northwestern and Ryan Day hangs 100. You don't want that, right? So the axe has to fall, and it's going to fall on several people when this season is over. Kirk Campbell is the first to get the Antoinette Louis XVI treatment here when this season ends. And if you're Sharon Moore, you've got to be able to quote the great prophet Corky in the classic film Waiting for Guffman, you got to make a clean cut. You got to make a clean cut. All right. You cannot have 2 games on your resume coordinating this offense. Okay. Because then that stain gets on you, and Ward Manuel needs stuff to sell for Sharon Moore at this point. I mean, it's very clear with the NIL program announced today. It's very clear Michigan has decided administratively to go all in to reclamate Sharon Moore. They don't want him to fail, and that's good. And Michigan has a vast amount of administrative inherent advantages that really heretofore it's been unwilling to tap into to level the playing field from a program standpoint, which is why we love Connor Stallion so much. His attempt to level the playing field, we view it as legendary here on our side of the fence. All right. So Michigan has finally decided to administratively deal with some of those self-imposed negatives to reclamate Sharon Moore. And that's all well and good, but you can't have, you can't, donors want to give to something they think will pay off in any walk of life, whether that's politics where I work, sports where you do, any charitable endeavor. They want to know that, hey, I worked and I'm giving this money away and I'm going to plant this seed and it's going to provide something. And if you have Sharon Moore take over OC duties and it looks every bit as much like what it's looked like so far, and I think it largely will, you can't sell that. So you got to insulate Sharon Moore from doing that, I think.
Yeah, so you're talking about setting him up for one more season in 2025. So he's most likely back. And they are bringing in a high-level recruiting class and most likely a great transfer portal class, as well as the saga.
Yeah, we will be the Ohio State Ole Miss of this transfer portal saga, regardless of what Bryce Underwood does.
That's all being trusted to Sharon Moore.
We're going to spend Kamala Harris for president campaign level money, hopefully to get a better ROI. But yes, that is the plan. Michigan will absolutely have the biggest player budget any program not called Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Miami. We're going to be spending in that weight class here a month from now. Yes.
Well, I like that they're going all in. I just think they're continuing to go with the wrong guy in charge. So there is a coaching component involved.
Correct.
Throughout college football, you can't just throw money and therefore talent at it.
You can't?
No, you cannot do that.
Oh, okay.
Do that. Can't be Texas of the last 15 years. You don't want to be them. So you got to have a guy that understands that you call a timeout with
now to be
7 on the clock and don't waste 34 seconds and then call the timeout.
Now to be fair to Sharon and Jimmy's time management, clock management here for 9 years was awful. What I don't know. I can't point to a singular incident as bad as what you're describing at the end of the Indiana game, but I mean, consistently, Michigan's clock management under Harbaugh was bad, particularly end of the first half situation. I mean, we were. I mean, ask any Michigan fan, they'll tell you it was bad year in and year out under Jimmy. But I hear what you're saying. What happened there at the end of the game? I mean, let's just be honest. This job is too big for him. Okay, that's been proven. All right, and now Michigan's gonna give him every chance to show that he has learned some lessons. I think you're going to see Michigan administratively, they're going to nursemaid him. They're going to hold his hand. I mean, you're going to see the Michigan network come through with a couple new coordinators, a couple more other position coaches, a massive amount of resources to spend on talent procurement. And I think between now and next August 30th, this is the Sharon Moore is Joe Biden. He is a figurehead, but not actually the one making the decisions. There's elements behind him running the show. And then we'll get to August 30th, and he'll actually have to coach the team. We'll get to games, and he'll be making the decisions, and we'll see how he does. But I think you will see the Michigan version of the bureaucracy, I think, is what you're going to see essentially try and resurrect and save the Sharon Moore era from himself, because it's clear the job's too big for him.
So it's this disjointed approach of we're going to go all in and resources, finances, everything all in on this, but we're going to hand it to a guy that, okay, there is a small possibility that he can grow into becoming a competent and then good head coach in college football. I think he has certain skill sets. There's no question about that that relate to coaching, of course, offensive line, of course, offensive coordinator, of course. So maybe he can grow into it, but you're going to gamble all those money and resources and the trust of all those donors that you may lose. I'm not talking about losing on the field, but lose their support.
That's the risk.
Based on like a 10 or 15% confidence level in Sharon Moore.
The problem, you're in a vortex right now too, though, where well, first of all, there's an elephant in the room. Let's just address. Michigan does not want to fire the first black coach in school history after 1 year. Doesn't want to do that. And I think a lot of people of various political persuasions could understand why you probably don't want to do that. Okay, that's number one. No, number two is the guy has been a celebrated assistant here and done some great things. So that is also a major factor here. Number three, he's putting together a very good recruiting class. And you fire him, you blow that entire thing up, you start all over again. And I think that this is their version of doing the opposite of him with him, with his implosion than was done with Jimmy. What was done with Jimmy with his implosion in 2020 was, we're cutting your salary in half, okay? And you're going to have to show us that you know what you're doing and can fix this. And for a veteran coach like Harbaugh, with the ability to call his brother up and say, "Hey, you're the winningest NFL franchise of the last 15 years. Send me your most promising defensive coordinating assistant," right? There was a network there that Jimmy could tap into. He does not have that network. All right, he doesn't have that network. I mean, all this talk that Harbaugh was going to help. Harbaugh raided half of his staff and took it with him. All right, so it's every man for himself. The way the Harbaugh's work is, they will recruit against one another. There is no I'm sure you're not surprised to hear this, but within the Harbaugh ecosystem, there is no gentlemanly pursuit, man. It's every man for himself meritocracy. Okay, so that was never going to happen, and so it's clear that he cannot put together a Michigan caliber staff. Demonstrated this year. Right. So Michigan, from a network perspective, the vast network and bureaucracy that is Michigan football, that has generational tentacles, is going to try and step in and essentially be the rising tide that lifts his boat. That's what you're going to see happen. So it'll be the opposite of what happened with Jimmy, which is, prove to us that you can manage this thing. It's Sharon. We know you can't. So we're going to do it and set you up for the most amount of success as possible. And then if you fail, we cut bait, move on.
Steve, how much of Jim Harbaugh's endorsement of Sharon Moore do you think was, number one, legitimate, meaning that he wasn't just giving him a pat on the back to say, "Hey, I owe you one, so I'm going to endorse you. I really don't believe in it. I don't buy into it." And then how much of that endorsement do you think impacted their decision?
Number one, Jimmy just doesn't operate like that on any level at all. So I don't think there's anything to that on number one. On number two, I think it was somewhat of a factor for sure. I think the biggest factor of all was the timing, that a guy who was clearly angling to replace Jimmy if he left, Kalen DeBoer, was now off the board. And so you've got all these major programs calling Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, and I'm not saying anything. They have said this stuff all themselves in public. Will Johnson, they're all being offered massive amounts of money to jump ship. And time is of the essence. You go through some kind of a national search, and who knows how good that national search is that late in the process. We're into mid to late January. Semesters started everywhere. School has started everywhere. And so I think it was absolutely the right decision at that point in time to go with Sharon and see if you've got, a Gary Moeller, Lloyd Carr, element sitting there on your staff or not. So they clearly don't, right? Doesn't mean that he can't be good. He's just not right now. He's just way, way over his head right now. So I think you'll see the Michigan network now step in and do a lot of the heavy lifting of what it takes to form a team, particularly in this next period of time between now and the end of December, when almost every major player in the portal is going to be off the table, when the recruiting classes will sign. And then after that, I think when you get into assembling a coaching staff, I think that you're going to see the Michigan network basically say, "Hey, we're going to put the training wheels on and nursemate you." That's what I think you're going to see. And I think today's NIL announcement and the way that Bryce Underwood's being pursued, I think, are all the first steps towards that. And you're also sending a signal to prospective coaches. Hey, is Michigan willing to go there in this new era? Does Michigan have the resources? It's always had the resources. Is it willing to deploy them? And if nothing else, however coveted you thought the Michigan job was before, you and I would probably both agree it's somewhere in the top 10 jobs in the sport, somewhere. One of us might say 6th, the other one might say 9th, but we'd both put it somewhere in the top 10. Well, now you know that Michigan is willing now to truly to have this a fully armed and operational level of Death Star. Okay, that signal has been sent, similar to Bryce Underwood. Whether we get him to flip or not, all the top recruits now know Michigan's open for business. You're seeing us get kids that are flipping from Clemson, kids that are flipping from Georgia. Okay, because the message is out. Michigan is willing to engage in what's called market economics, and the same thing is being said to the coaching fraternity. So there's no L here. Really, Mark, if Sharon Moore is a great figurehead for a program, well-spoken, has a commanding presence, if it could work, he could be very successful here. And if not, you got to cut bait 12 months from now. You sent a message to the coaching fraternity, hey, we're ready. Yeah, we're willing to do what it takes to win here. We just need you, So to me, it's a win either way.
But you need strong coordinators to obviously have any chance of pulling that off. And I still don't even know if you can pull that out. I pull that off. I don't know that this is the 1958 New York Giants with Tom Landry,
and Vince Lombardi.
And whoever the head coach was. I can never remember his name.
Yeah.
But if you can do that in college football 70 years later.
Agreed. And I think you'll see the Michigan Network do that. I mean, I don't have any inside word on this part of it, but I'm going to tell you, there'll be pressure placed on guys like Brian Greasy and others who have put together good coaching resumes elsewhere. Hey, open checkbook. We need you to come in, save the old alma mater. The Michigan man thing is a real thing here. All right. It is a real thing. There is a real ethos and ecosystem to that. And I think that many calls are already being made and will be made about who is going to come in here and salvage this, all right, and save Sharon Moore from himself. And then we may find out 12 months from now it's not salvageable. Fine. Well, then you sent a message to whoever are the hot coaching prospects, the Dusty Mays of that cycle. Michigan is willing to do what it takes, so that wasn't just because Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. We have systemic advantages here. We've always had. We've just been shy about using them, if not completely hostile to it. We're going to use them now. So the fig leaf is removed now. Checks are being written and money is being spent. So feel free to come in and take over the checkbook.
All right. And just as an aside, for anybody that's getting on Sharon Moore, and you mentioned Jim Harbaugh, I don't remember any real gaffes with Harbaugh. I'm sure that you could list them off in regards to time management. If you're just focused on your specific college football team, Michigan fans, this goes on all over the place. It's rampant in the sport where these coaches cannot manage the time. And there's supposed to be somebody up in the press box that's doing it for them.
Right.
And they evidently have a communication issue, or they don't know how to do their job either. It's amazing how many gaffes there are across college football every Saturday.
No doubt. No doubt. I'll tell you this. I'd still rather be us than Penn State and many of these other schools that are just in this vortex of can't get over the top. I mean, look at the hoodie I'm wearing today. All right. We won the Natty, So everybody else, what's that?
One of the great conversations we've had through the years was you tiered this situation off. I'm saying this is like 2018, 2019, where Michigan stood at the time, and we're teetered between tier 1 and tier 3, and that it was a crucial time, and it seemed to go the wrong way, but obviously Harbaugh pulled it together. So absolutely.
All right. Great stuff, Mark. Good to see you. Remember, no show next week with the bye week. All right. So we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
You bet. All right. This week's X poll results. Should Kurt Campbell be allowed to work one more day as Michigan's offensive coordinator? 85% said no. The 15% of you that said yes, I want to work for you. I would love to go work for you. There's no standards. I can do whatever I want. There's no level of suck you will not embrace. I mean, can you guys let me know here in the comments on YouTube how many of you are business owners and what business that is? Because I want to work for you. You are my kind of boss. You're just willing to tolerate literally anything. So, and you pay well. So I'm in. All right, that brings us to our feedback of the week. Zach Darrow says, unless we have solid proof that Bryce Underwood is signing with us because of Kurt Campbell on top of NIL reasons, no. Here's what I can tell you is Kurt Campbell is nowhere near Bryce Underwood's recruitment. So take that for what you think. Yeah, Kurt Campbell is nowhere near that. And now Kurt Campbell shouldn't be near any recruitment. I mean, the only thing he should be next to is the Michigan Workforce Development Office. All right, but no, he has. He's nowhere near. I mean, if Kurt Campbell comes near Bryce Underwood, I mean, it's going to look like the walk of shame in Game of Thrones. Shame, shame, shame. I mean, no, not happening. No, he's nowhere near that recruitment, which is why it has a chance. Not sure how much of one, but much more of one than it would if Kurt Campbell were involved. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Mercifully, no show next week with the bye week. Although I could take a season of buys. In fact, I can hear the sniffles from within the Schenbeckler building from here. Lots of sniffles. I think we need to do some COVID testing. My guess is some guys under the weather, unable to go. I think I speak for every Michigan fan. Definitely should maybe shut it down and make sure no one's contagious. Indeed, winter is coming after all. Let us know what you think about what we think via the the comment section here on YouTube, iTunes. You can leave us 5-star reviews there. Like, share, rate, subscribe. Whether you're doing so because you're a Michigan fan like me who is still in, oh, well, we won the Natty mode. We did. You're a Buckeye fan who's just doing this because you enjoy our suffering. Either way, your clicks and views matter just the same. So keep those going. You can also follow us in between episodes at Michigan Podcast right here on X, at Michigan Podcast as well. Until the next time, 2 weeks from now, we'll see. I might cancel that too. Until then, I'm Steve Day saying, go Blue.